This is gonna take crackerjack timing, Wang.
Total concentration. You ready, Jack?
I was born ready.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and we don't have any huge updates, but there are updates for all the comic industry Rona, fallout that we've been seeing. And joining me today is my good friend Perch to talk about this, what all this means. What's up, Perch?
Hey, doing okay. Glad to be here. I hope you're doing okay.
I am doing very well, but the comic industry, not so much. Marvel is telling more comic creators to put their pencils down and halt work for now as they come up with whatever their strategy is going to be moving forward. Not surprising.
No, not surprising. I mean, Marvel doesn't want to get too far ahead in books. They already had some books that they were getting ahead on because they planned to do some double shipping, I think, through the summer and the fall. And now that's in at least some question. They've stacked up some content. And so I think you're going to see further announcements of more stoppages as Marvel starts to kind of fill out a good backlog of material. So I wouldn't be surprised if we got a third announcement here in about 2 weeks or so with more projects. I think a lot of the creators I've talked to are expecting it as well. So far, at least the feeling with most of Marvel, not all, is that this is definitely a temporary thing. It is about backlog. There's not some deeper, threat looming or some collapse there. Other than a couple individuals, certainly, who are worried about furloughs and other things. But so far, it's just a matter of they can't let too much stock get backed up.
So over at DC Comics, a little bit different story. There have been some creators who have been told pencils down, but really what they've been doing is they've been continuing along, but they've also moved some creators over to this new black and white Batman digital only comic book. What do you know about this series?
So I don't think we've got full confirmation. I mean, we've got a lot of people talking about it, but I may be wrong about that. Has there been a full confirmation of that book or just a lot of speculation?
Lots of speculation, but when there's that much smoke, I assume that there's a fire.
Yeah, we do expect something is coming, but I think there is this idea of, how do we get some smaller stories out? Maybe how do we keep the brand awareness going? I think, and this is speculation now on my part, I think DC more than Marvel is in the position of we really need to keep our brand out there. We need to keep a lot of these characters front of mind. We were having, at the time, Warner level, they were having really big expectations for Wonder Woman. They've got the tentpole Batman movie coming up. So I think there is more of a desire to say, we can't just go dark for 3-4 months. We need to keep that brand moving. And I think it's also a way for them to experiment a little bit with digital. That's where it's rumored to go. And it makes sense. I think that DC seems to be taking more of this break to plan and to kind of get more things organized and ordered. And you kind of expect them to come out of the gate with a slightly different DC and maybe a more focused DC. Whereas Marvel, not that either is better or worse, I think they're going to try and come out the gate really pushing the core titles that they were pushing before this happened. So with Marvel, it's kind of returned to normalcy. With DC, I think they will use this to adjust a bit.
So DC isn't the only publisher kind of taking advantage of a very unfortunate situation. Bad Idea, who's fronted by former Valiant Comics owner Dinesh Shamdasani, and AWA, which I believe is headed up by former Marvel editor
Axel Alonso.
Yes. They are taking this opportunity to up their production, and reportedly they are approaching some of these creators who have been, put on furlough, laid off, told not to create right now, and seeing if they want to move over and maybe work on some of their projects. I don't find this to be very dirty because people are out of work. They need to get paid. But I do think it's very smart and a good opportunity for a Bad Idea and AWA to get a hold of some really good talent.
Yeah, I mean, so it absolutely, this isn't a dirty thing. I mean, these are people, and some people say they're taking advantage of the situation. They're trying to build their business. They're not going out and they're not smearing other companies. They're not doing things that are shady here. They're trying to hire people who are available for work. That's the most normal thing in the world. We'd expect that. So, I think that's fine. Those companies have an advantage that the bigger companies and even the more traditional publishers don't have. They're not saddled with high operation costs. They're new. So they have a lot more flexibility to pivot and change and react to the situation than others might. AWA, relatively, their costs were fairly low. They ran a lean operation. They were starting their big launch and build out when this happened. So the idea that now, okay, they need to pivot, maybe have a different digital strategy, a different marketing strategy, and how they move forward, maybe even find different publishers, routes to market. It's dramatically easier for them to do that than, say, Image or Marvel, that has a long established operation built up. So, you know, AWA but AWA, more than Bad Idea, was really, they were already trying to approach creators to lure them over. And I know a lot of people were like, well, I'm not sure if, you know, I would trust the stability of a startup, you know, for all intents and purposes. And now I think they're going back to those same conversations and saying, well, how about now? We're giving you work. And the startup that's paying. So, you know, I do think they're going to attract some talent. I think definitely they're going to attract some talent that are, you know, in Axel Alonso's case, very familiar to readers of Marvel circa 2015. He's going to go after people he knew and he was friends with, and we're sorry to see him go. And so I think we have a pretty clear idea of how that company is going to look.
Sometimes when life gives you lemons, you have to make lemonade, and it sounds like, you know, DC Comics, Bad Idea, and AWA are trying to make the best of a bad situation, and hopefully capitalize once the market comes back to normal, whatever the new normal, you know, is. And so the next thing we definitely had to be expecting is Jeppy Family Enterprises announced Diamond Comic Distributors furloughs. You know, they finally started laying off some more of their staff and workers like that. You know, with all the things that have been happening with Diamond, you know, they're shut down right now. They're giving partial payments out. They have no money coming in. This was kind of inevitable.
Yep, not a surprise at all. I mean, it had to happen. So Diamond at this point they have one mission and one game, and that's preserve enough capital that they can survive the 2 to 3 months for them to start operations again. That's it. And I mean, unfortunately, the trick for Diamond is going to be, will they be given enough ramp to know when things are restarting again so that they can get workers back into the plant, release people from furlough in some cases? What can they do? That's the worrisome situation for everybody in every industry, is we don't get the feeling like we're going to ease out of this situation very cleanly. And for comics, you know, it's not a stop and start business. It's not like you say, okay, we can go back to work now, starting Monday. Everybody, quick, you know, get in the cars. Let's go back to work. Comics doesn't exactly work that way. There's a startup cost getting moving. So Diamond has furloughed people. It just means that because of their shortage of capital, it's going to be harder for them to start back up again. We're starting to add weeks to when things open up that they can start operations. So I think this is something to watch. The more Diamond cuts, the more that startup time is going to take. And it's definitely going to impact and answer the question of, when are we going to get comics shipping out stores again?
They are sitting on new comics. We think 3 or 4 weeks worth of comics that they're going to need to get out and start rolling into comic shops once the new solicitations come out and they're ready to roll. Now, I know you've been hearing this, you know, maybe early to mid-May timeframe. It feels like something that isn't going to happen. But what do you think are the chances? It sounds like there's been a lot of speculation on that.
I mean, there has. I think there's part of this. So just to give some quick background on this, I mean, part of this stems from a kind of a 1-2 punch of news. So on Twitter or YouTube, Peter Simeti announced that Alterna had been told it was going to be August. And that created a lot of ripples. A lot of people talked about that everywhere. Okay, it's August. Spread like wildfire because this was a publisher saying, you know, a date that was far out from what everybody else had been saying. So kind of as a counterpunch, Bleeding Cool then ran the article saying, oh, we're hearing, you know, mid to late May is when things are going to get going again. It could be then. I think that the reality is, you know, Peter was a small publisher, so it makes sense that he's being told a longer date. If you know, if that was the day he was told, it has more to do with Peter standing as a publisher and not necessarily, you know, what Marvel is going to do. Because in Peter's announcement, it was that Diamond would start accepting new books in August, which is different from saying Diamond was going to ship out the new books they already had, or Diamond was going to start to clear the backlog of say, the bigger publishers that earn them more money. So if you're predicting the date, what you have to look at is the locations of Diamond, their distributors, their publishers, their printers, not their printers, but the printers are going to supply them with books, and say, okay, when are those areas going to open up? When are the stay-at-home orders going to be lifted? And reasonably, when can comics and that whole machine go? Then add the 2 to 3 weeks of startup cost minimum, And I think you're probably looking at late June, optimistically, for comics to go out to stores. That's my prediction. I think late May is ridiculous. Unfortunately, I think there's no evidence that that could happen.
All right. So on top of that, we know that there are 2 states out there that sound like they're more hesitant to open up for business than others, although they are trying to kind of control the story. New York and California. Those are 2 of the biggest markets in the entire United States for comic books. 2 of the 4 biggest markets, you know, when you take into consideration Texas and Chicago. If New York and if California are closed, but the rest of the country is open, would it even be worth the comic industry to start up and start delivering comics again anyway?
You know, it would, in the sense of, if these stay-at-home orders and people in California and Washington, or sorry, in New York, are still doing mail order stuff, and they're still able to kind of keep the wheels going. So if you know, if that process could continue without an open shop, you know, maybe. The challenge, though, is that we've seen these coalitions form, partially in response to the president. And that is that you've got, you know, New York forming a bit of an East Coast coalition of other states, so which broadens that decision. And you see California, Oregon, and Washington are going to act in unison in terms of reopening. So now you're talking about not just 2 states, but, you know, more like 10. And in that world, not only do you have a lot of shops that would be closed, so they could still do mail order, sure, but that's I think in terms of the economy and overall bulk of the country, you're talking about, you know, nearly a third, if not more. And unfortunately, a lot of the distributors and the distribution centers for Diamond and other places fit into those states. So it's a tough situation. We need it to lift. We absolutely, the economy is taking a beating, and we have to get to a quicker resolution and stop playing politics over it. But that's where we are.
Does seem like a hurdle that will need to be scaled at some point, because it doesn't feel like those states are really anxious to become open for business.
They're I mean, they're playing it extremely cautious. I think there are definitely some politics involved here in what they're doing. I think that they're also trying to keep things, you know, they are trying to keep people safe in their own way, but when you're dealing with a lot of unknowns, you tend to overreact, and in some cases, because if you don't, you're going to get hammered. So I mean, I don't want to, you know, we can all, everybody has a different opinion, I'm sure, on whether this is right, too far, too little, etc. That's not really, I know, the point of this show. It's simply logistically, given those people and those attitudes, when are comics going to start up again? The answer is not soon.
More bad news, obviously. Speaking of California Governor Gavin Newsom, on Tuesday, he said the prospect of mass gatherings is negligible at best until we get herd immunity and we get a vaccine. Large-scale events that bring in hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of strangers are not in the cards based upon our current guidelines and current expectations. Now, this rolls directly into Book Expo, which was canceled, but also San Diego Comic-Con, which is scheduled to occur in late July. It appears we're just waiting for the announcement that it's canceled now.
Yeah, San Diego Comic-Con will not happen, not in its current form. There's zero chance, and there's plenty of indications. I mean, retailers have pulled out because they can't afford it. In a lot of cases, exhibitors are not going, so there will not be a San Diego Comic-Con like it's happened in the past. Now, I think why San Diego Comic-Con hasn't released an official announcement yet is because they are contemplating what they want to do instead. I think that, you know, any kind of hopes for maybe delaying it into the fall or the winter are kind of coming apart at this point. So I think it's really a matter of, do they want to do some kind of online show? Do they want to do some kind of smaller expo somewhere? Or what do they want to do? And I think those decisions are why we're seeing a delay. They need to figure those things out.
Sounds very highly unlikely. Yeah, San Diego Comic-Con is going to be canceled. It's just really destroying vendors and, you know, freelance artists, because this is a lot of the ways that they make money. You know, a lot of the independent publishers don't pay a lot. And to not have this income, it's like a double whammy, because, you know, you're told pencils down, maybe your project's, you know, put on hold, and now you can't go sell some of that original artwork or even go network and try and get that next job.
Right. No, it's bad. I mean, the convention season in general is being dramatically hurt. And the convention season also, these organizers, they're not profit rich. So they run these shows. They do get some, some profitability certainly, but if you're going to go a year without them, it's tough for that business.
Yeah, that's too bad. Now on to a little bit more of a good news. We do have word, basically following the lead of Rob Liefeld and Jim Lee, over 100 comic creators have decided to start like auctioning off works and other things. I know it looks like Scott Snyder is going to be offering like classes. Like if you go and bid and you win the auction, he's going to give you classes on how to maybe write a comic or maybe write your first issue. And it's being called #CreatorsForComics. There's a website involved, and it's all basically going to the Book Industry Charitable Foundation to help local comic shops.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. You can do it. I mean, you don't have to be strictly a comic creator. There's a lot of people who are going to be contributing to it. I'm going to be looking into some comics to auction off as part of it. The foundation that's handing out the money seems legitimate. They do run a pretty good show. They have a good reputation. So I need to look into it further, of course, but I think it's a good thing. It's people just trying to go into their backlog, trying to get money places. Any of these ideas help.
I do want to congratulate and say thank you to the people that are involved. And not all, sometimes you and I can be critical of these people, but when it comes to something like this, we're very appreciative and a job well done. We got Kelly Sudaconic, Marv Wolfman, Jeff Johns, Joe Hill, Scott Snyder, Shannon Hale, Tom King, Gene Llewellyn Yang, Daniel Page, Jason Aaron, Mark Guggenheim, Brian Lee O'Malley, Gabriel Piccolo, Gail Simone, Brad Meltzer, Ryan North, Paul Levitz, Jeff Lemire, David Mack, Greg Rucka, G. Willow Wilson, James Finney IV, Cassandra Clare, and Mariko Tamaki. Also in there is Cami Garcia, Brian Michael Bendis, Gwenda Bond, Sam Humphries, and Phil Jimenez. Of course, with 100 names, there's even more than that, but thank you to all those people and a job well done, and we hope that they're able to raise a lot of money and we can save some comic shops. And I may be critical of the work. I do not hold that against them personally, and this is an excellent job and shows the character of who they really are.
Yeah, flat out good thing. And there's a lot of good things that people are trying to do to help this industry and help out. I mean, Donny Cates buying pull lists, these kinds of things. These are all, however that help comes, it's welcomed. I know the industry appreciates it. Retailers appreciate it. Fans and customers appreciate it. These are good things that have happened. I'm glad to see a lot of people rising to the occasion and trying their best to help.
All right, Perch, I know we're up against the time. You got work to do. I got work to do. Do you have anything else to say before we wrap this Rona update?
No, we're let's just all keep connected to each other. We're in this together. We are in this together. So let's keep pushing and fighting and enjoy this hobby, this community, this comic industry that we love.
Well said, my friend. Later. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.